Welcome to Biology Made Easy. In this lesson, we are discussing food web, specifically how to construct a food web. You have an ecosystem or a habitat as you have there. Let us imagine that you have these organisms in that habitat. You have a grasshopper, you can have a snake, you have caterpillar, and all kinds of organisms. And these organisms will be interacting with each other in their feeding habits. And the interactions or the relationships among these organisms, well, as far as feeding is concerned, it's not just single food chains. There's a network of feeding relationships in that whole habitat. And that network of feeding relationship is what a food web is. So, a network of feeding relationships in an ecosystem where energy flows in the form of food from producers through a network of consumers. So, if you have a habitat as you have there and all these organisms are in that habitat, you have a grasshopper, you have a wild goat, lizard, of course grass is there plentiful. You can have a hawk or a shrub with fruits. You see those shrubs there. You can have some snake, caterpillar, fruit bat. Let's see you have these organisms in that habitat. So there's food relationships, feeding, and how do you construct the relationship of food that forms the web? For the first step, always have an imaginary line. You can just have a small line. You have the first trophic level. You clean this soap. Then you have another one, which you write the second trophic level. You have a third trophic level. And then the fourth trophic level. This should be pencil because when you finish, you clean the pencil out. So what you do next is to arrange the organisms that form the first trophic level. And those ones are the plants. So in here, you look through, you have grass. So grass is picked and you cross grass out. So we have our grass here. Then the next thing you look through, you have a shrub with fruits. It's also on the first trophic level with fruits. It's also on your first trophic level. So you fit in all the organisms that are found on the same trophic level. Then you look at the second trophic level. Those are the herbivores or the omnivores. And the herbivores, we have grasshopper here. So we quickly put in our grasshopper, cancelling that out. We have our grasshopper. Then, well, yes, wild goat is also here. It's also a herbivore. We look through, we are looking for those on the second trophic level. Here is a caterpillar. It's also a herbivore. And then the fruit bat is also a herbivore. So it goes on the second trophic level. These will be cleaned. So we put in organisms on the third trophic level, the organisms that will feed on these. And here we have the lizard and the snake. These can form the third trophic level. And looking through, we have the hawk, which will stand in the fourth trophic level because the hawk will feed on the snake and the lizard. So looking through, all the organisms have been cancelled out so that you don't leave any organism out. And then the next stage is to put in the arrows that shows energy is flowing from this organism to that. As the grasshopper feeds on the grass, energy flows from the grass to the grasshopper. You know how energy flows. So we put in our energy flows. We have energy flowing from the grass to the grasshopper. Let's do all the two levels first before we get on. So wild goat will also feed on the grass. Yes, caterpillar can feed on the grass. It can also feed on the shrub. The fruit bat can also feed on the shrub with fruits. Well, so we have grass, grasshopper, wild goats, caterpillar, fruit bats. We then come and put in the energy flows here. Lizard can feed on the grasshopper, so we have it in here like this. Then lizard can also feed on the caterpillar. Energy is flowing in here. The caterpillar, fruit bat, yes. The snake can feed on the fruit bat, yes. The snake can also feed on caterpillar, yes. Some snakes can also feed on grasshopper. And then you have snake can also feed on the grasshopper, on the lizard. So energy can flow from the lizard to the snake, and then all these can be fed on by the hawk. Energy can flow like this to the hawk. So I have a question. Doesn't any organism feed on wild goats? Well, let's imagine that if we have tiny wild goats, very tiny ones, possibly the hawk can also feed on it, can trap it. But then what if there are ticks and there's bacteria in the ticks? Then we can have ticks in here on this trophic level, and energy will flow from the wild goat to the ticks, and there will be bacteria here, and energy will flow from the ticks to the bacteria. What if there's a decomposing log or wood in the place? So wood or rotting wood, and there's puffballs in there. So there's a puffball and rotting wood, or have a rotting wood here, or decaying wood here. And so we can have a puffball here. It's also in the habitat. And so energy will flow from the rotting wood to the puffball, and the puffball will decay the rotting wood. And if there are tiny, tiny worms in there, they'll get bits and pieces from the rotting wood that the puffball worked on. And other organisms like the lizard can also get a share of what is happening from the worms, feed on the worms, and energy will flow from the worms to the lizard. In an ecosystem, one can easily draw the food chain if the steps that I have indicated is followed, and you have a complex, neat food web easily done. We can have a small key to our food web. We can indicate that the arrow shows the directional flow of energy. The key is that the arrow shows the directional flow of energy as food is eaten. That is it. So this is our food web, neatly constructed, and is easy. Now we can look at this food web. It's made up of interconnected food chains. So we can look at this food web and draw a lot of food chains from it. One of the food chains, as you can easily work out, you have grass to grasshopper, grass to grasshopper, lizard, hawk. So you can have a number of food chains because a food web is interconnected food chains. And you can also turn a number of food chains into a food web easily. Here we can have grass, wild goats, ticks, bacteria, grass, wild goat, hawk, shrubs, caterpillar, snake. It's a food chain. Well, this brings us to the end of our lesson. Please give us your likes and do kindly subscribe. Thank you very much. Goodbye.